Perfect. Okay, so hi everyone. We'll do a little formal introduction now. So this is the presentation on the North American Language and Culture Assistance Program, lovingly known as NALCAP, and obviously it's in Spain. I'm Hope Kennedy. I am the Peace Corps Prep Advisor at the International Center here at UMich. I also am lucky enough that they let me talk about my experience abroad. I graduated in 2021 and was not able to do the Peace Corps. But I also know a lot about NALCAP, and I'm here to be a resource for you guys. I was obviously, like I mentioned before, I went to undergrad here and did NALCAP for 2 years, and then I'm currently going for my MSW, so social work. And I'll pass it over to Jake.
And hi, everyone. I'm Jake Koelzer. I am a full-time staff member at the International Center, so I'm a program manager and advisor. I do education abroad advising, so like study, intern, volunteer, post-grad opportunities abroad, like teaching English. And then I also do like event planning and programming for our international students on campus. So I'll get to it a little bit later, but the NALCAP I went to Michigan as an undergrad. And the NALCAP program is a huge reason why I got into the field of education abroad. So yeah, I owe a lot to it. I'm very passionate about it, and I'll leave it at that for now.
All right, cool. So let's go to the next slide here. So a little bit about the program. So the NALCAP program is basically an opportunity to be a teaching assistant, an auxiliar in a primary or secondary public school in Spain. This program is going to be run by the Spanish Ministry of Education. And the really unique part that a lot of other teaching abroad programs post-graduation don't have is that this is actually a paid opportunity. So you are getting paid to be in a school 16 hours a week. That's about 4 hours a day. 4 days a week, and you are going to be helping with language acquisition. So with it can vary between high school and elementary school, but you'll be doing like conversation, maybe some helping with some written stuff if you're at a high school. And it's a great opportunity to you're gonna be able to talk a lot about the US, talk about your culture, and also helping students with their English skills. A really also beneficial part of this program is that it is the academic year. So this program starts October 1st and ends June 30th in Madrid. And then it will run from October 1st to May 31st in other regions. So if you have summer plans, you can still do those post-graduation. This isn't something where you right after you graduate, you need to go abroad or you need to do something else. You do have a little bit of time in between, which honestly is quite nice. Anything to add here? Slide.
Yeah, I'll just add something about just stressing that you are in the Spain program, you are an assistant. So you're assisting a native Spanish teacher in the program. So you're not responsible for things like grading or discipline. You are strictly there to teach students in the classroom and share your culture, and then in exchange learn about Spanish culture. This might be a little bit different than other teach abroad programs. I'm not sure if any of you are exploring other locations besides Spain, but in programs like in Japan and South Korea, many times you are the main teacher in the classroom, and that's actually reflected in pay. So the pay is quite a bit higher. And when we'll talk about the salary that you receive in this program in a bit, but just wanted to stress that there are different structures of how you teach abroad, and the Spain one is where you're an assistant as opposed to the head teacher.
Yeah, that's a great point to highlight. Thank you for that. All right, let's go on to the next slide here. So let's talk about eligibility requirements in order to do this program. So you need to be a US citizen. You need to be a native English speaker or at a native level. You need to have a bachelor's degree or you need to be enrolled as a sophomore, junior, or senior in college. Most participants are going to teach abroad after graduation, especially because doing this program in the middle of your college career, it's a bit hard to go back. People find that it's a bit hard to go back afterwards. So just so you guys know, it is an option, but most people do it after graduation. Another really important point is that basic proficiency of Spanish is recommended. So in my experience, and I think Jake can speak to this as well, all of the outside of school things, going to government appointments, getting your residency card, which is a requirement. You have to get a background check when you get there as well. You also need to like find housing, all of that. And also your day-to-day interactions with people is going to be in Spanish. So if you have zero knowledge of Spanish, that might be something that you want to consider before going, of potentially taking some classes, brushing up on things, and also just being open to like having that experience in Spanish. There's definitely a lot of opportunity to speak English as well, but having some sort of knowledge of Spanish in order to kind of like facilitate daily life is quite helpful.
Yeah, and on that note, I although I totally agree with Hope that at least a basic or intermediate knowledge of Spanish would be very helpful for this program. It is not a requirement, so I don't want that to deter you from applying if you really want to join this program, because there are other programs, especially in Europe, most notably in France. So the French government has a similar program, and you need to test into a specific level in order to be eligible for the program. There's no like Spanish language test that you take in order to be eligible to participate in the program. So it's a little bit of a distinction. But with that said, it would be definitely to your advantage to have some level of Spanish background.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Again, clearly you're doing the comparisons with the other programs and such. Jake is the expert here as well. All right, so let's talk about where you could teach. This is the fun part, right? So if you look on the right of the screen here, you're going to see the autonomous regions of Madrid. They're autonomous communities. So as you can see, they vary in size, and that is going to be something important when you're thinking about the regions that you want to apply to. What kind of experience do you want to have when you're going abroad? Over here on the left side of the screen, you're going to see the amount of placements that each community has. So as you can see, Andalusia and also Madrid are going to be the biggest communities. These are going to be the most popular placements. Another thing that you want to think about, going back to the size of the community, is that you are applying to the entire community. You are not applying to a city. This is super important when you look at like the Comunidad de Valencia. Let's say you love the city of Valencia. You've heard it's a great beach town. You're like all have this in your mind that you're going to go there. And then you get sent to like a little small town 2 hours outside of Valencia. So it's important to think about when you're applying to these regions, what kind of experience do I want to have? And like, if I get placed in a smaller town, am I okay with that? Can I be flexible? Thinking about like, it might be maybe a more authentic experience where you get to pass or spend more time with more native speakers, you have more interactions. And I've had friends that did that in the smaller cities and loved it. I also personally, and same for Jake, we both lived in Madrid. And so we lived in the center of the city. So that was also a different experience. One other thing that's important to note is that you're going to pick 3 different regions you'd like to live in. If you look at this little screenshot at the bottom of the screen, the way that Profex was set up, which is like, it's like their M Compass. So basically the way that you're going to apply to this program is going to be through this platform that the Spanish government has set up. And you have to pick 3 regions that you'd like to be in. You have to pick, and then you have to rank them. Like, this is my first choice, second choice, and third choice. You have to pick a region from each of these groups. So let's say you really want to go, your first choice is in Andalusia, and your second choice is the Community of Madrid. Unfortunately, both of those are going to be in group C. So you're not able to pick the more popular placements as like, well, that's 1, 2, and 3. And they do this so that way the other regions also are going to get a shot at having people. They need to fill these placements as well. So as you can see here, let's say you picked Madrid as your #1 option in group C. So that's your overall #1 option. In group B, let's say you picked Galicia up in the north. That's your #2 option. And then in group 3, you picked Asturias. So that's your 3rd option. So hopefully that just gives a bit of context to the application. This part can be a bit confusing to people. If there's any additional questions at the end, we can definitely answer that. But just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of things you want to take into consideration when you're applying. One other quick note I will add, Andalusia is a huge region and has some really beautiful culture and, well, cities and culture. What they've done now, it used to be that you just applied to the entire region. This is specific for Andalusia. When you apply and you get accepted into that region, you are then able to apply to a specific school. I'm not fully certain how that process works. I think it directs you to another page from what I've heard from my friends that are there. And then you have to like select a school from a list or something. And again, if you're getting to that point and have questions, feel free to reach out to us. But just so that you know, there is a bit more flexibility specifically with this region that's quite large and also quite popular. Cool. All right, so let's go on to a little bit more about the application process. There are going to be 3 things that you're going to want to do before ProFex opens or before you are starting this official process. You're going to need a statement of purpose and it also needs to be in English. This is going to say, why do you want to do this program? What are you hoping to gain from it? This is also, just as an important note, there are some other programs, like Fulbright or other things like that, where you need to be writing at the top level possible. Like a very beautiful 300-word statement on why you want to do this. This program is first come, first serve. So as long as you're being somewhat intentional of I really would love to have an intercultural experience because in the future, I foresee myself working with people from other countries and think it'd be really useful to have some sort of experience in this. That's great. So it doesn't need to be this big elaborate statement, but also put a little bit of time into it. A letter of recommendation, you're going to need to have that from I think it can't be dated any earlier than September 20th or something, which should not be an issue for you guys. Also, I believe they need to send it to you and then you upload it. We might have to double check on that. I'm pretty sure that's how it's worked in the past. So the recommender would send you their letter of recommendation and you would upload it yourself. And then you're also need to have your diploma or transcript. So those are the 3 main things. Also, I believe one of you noted before, and we've mentioned this a little bit, is that ProFex was set to open tomorrow. So the application was supposed to open tomorrow at 6 p.m. They're currently entirely revamping this system. So it's not open right now. And unfortunately, you're just going to have to look at the website, stay posted. They also have an Instagram. I thought a piece of advice that would be useful for you guys is for us to look at the application guidelines. So this is in the, we can put this, maybe Jake, we can put this in the chat too. For students, this is if you just look up NALCAP, this is going to be basically the application guideline for you all. So here's this your holy Bible. You follow this to a T, you're going to be okay. So the application progress, they're going to talk about the requirements, ProFex, when you can finally get on, what that will look like, the application period, the guidelines, videos, application steps. So the reasons they're going to have guidelines, instructions, and videos is because ProFex is not only used as a platform for auxiliares de conversación or the assistant teachers. It's also a government platform. So unfortunately and fortunately, it's going to be in Spanish. So they're going to give you if we look right here, they're going to give you instructions on let's see if they show it on here. They'll say this means like intramite, like, so they say like borrador sin destino. So they're saying like, it's a draft that you haven't been assigned to like a region or something. They're going to basically translate everything for you in this document here of like, here's the step-by-step guide to do this. So if you're worried about that, don't be. You should be okay with this general information and the specific guide. Let's go back to the presentation. Is there any questions on this, Jake? Anything you'd like to touch on here?
Just one question that I've gotten a lot over the years is how competitive is the application process, or like is the program, like the acceptance rates and stuff like that? And Hope, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that it's not a very competitive program. So not to say that it's not a great program or anything like that. It's just it's just that from my experience, if you meet all the eligibility requirements, which they're not very strict, so I'm sure you will. I don't see you not getting accepted into the program as long as you apply by the application deadline. The advantage of applying earlier, of course, when the application is actually available, is it will increase the chance of you getting your preference, like region of preference. So there, I definitely recommend applying as early as possible if you care about where you would want to be placed. But in terms of getting accepted into the program itself, I would say it's not very competitive.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and that is a really it's important to highlight for sure. I think if you're looking for a prestigious option, this is a great backup because it is first come first serve. Also, I will say I've known people that applied like the day before the deadline and still got a placement in Madrid in the city, like a very desirable option. So there is some like, it's not guaranteed that you'll get your first choice if you apply early, but it is more likely. There's a lot of kind of just like luck of the draw with some of these placements at times. And so it's just being aware of that as well when you're going in. Also, another thing that people like, yes, this is not a competitive thing, but also like the experience is what you make of it. So like if you're hoping to do like X, Y, and Z, like there's some people that are like, I want to do research when I'm here. I want to like, work with, I want to practice my Arabic in the South and like, do X, Y, and Z. Like there are a lot of different ways that you can make this a unique experience, maybe outside of the traditional ideas of like a competitive program. Clearly I like NALCAP. I'm a little biased. All right, let's go on to the benefits of the program, trying to sell you once again. So in Madrid, it's going to be €1,000 a month, which is going to be a flat rate. This is also super helpful. Or I guess so it's €1,000 a month in Madrid, and then it's going to be €800 a month in other regions. The really nice thing about this rate is like you are also paid when the students are on vacation. So when there are a lot of like small little holiday weekends where like maybe you don't work on a Friday and they don't have school on a Monday. Like you are still paid for that Monday because it's like the region or the government has like, it's a governmental holiday. Also, so like spring break, you get paid for spring break, which is pretty nice. The other thing that people do to supplement their income is going to be private after school lessons. Those you kind of just have to find on like Facebook pages or like through word of mouth. And those are going to charge around 15 to 20 euros an hour, depending on the region. The other big benefit that I think we kind of touched on before is that it's immersive, right? Like you are doing all of these things in another country. You're figuring out housing, you're joining clubs, you're, going out to have tapas with your friends, or you're doing language exchanges. It's a really great way to like maybe have some of those experiences that like students may have had in study abroad or other things, but like without that structure. So it's really what you create the experience to be. It's really big on personal growth for sure. Post-grad is a pivotal time in a lot of people's lives. And like, instead of going into a 40-hour a week job, you can work 16 hours a week, 4 days a week, and travel. And also like live international, like is a really helpful way to like ease you into post-grad life, I would say. Because a lot of, I don't know, a lot of my friends were like, post grad is hard. And I was like, I totally agree. But like at least I can travel to like Mallorca on the weekend, or like I can go to like Venice, or like go somewhere else to like have some other experiences. So that ties in very nicely with the travel and free time to explore. It's also an exposure to different career fields. Like before I was abroad, I thought that I wanted to go to law school. And when I was there, I kind of had a change of heart. And that was partially because of like the volunteer experience that I did and the immersive experiences I had. And also thinking about how Spanish people think about culture and life. I was like, do I really feel like for me it's a good fit to like work 50, 60 hours a week? Like, is that what I want out of life? So it was a bit of like soul searching, but like also important to kind of just get out of that like bubble of college, getting a job right after. Just seeing different ways of seeing the world is really helpful post grad. Anything you want to add, Jake, here? Or move on?
No, I think you covered that really well. I'll just echo what you said about the getting exposed to different career fields. Like I went in at like to Spain as a history major, thinking I'd go back in grad school for history, and then I don't know, maybe be like a professor or something. Probably not realizing how hard that is at the time. Yeah, once I was living in Spain and got used to Spanish culture and like what work-life balance means to them, yeah, I was not interested in going like back to become a professor or anything like that. So that's how I learned about the international education field, just interacting with people from all over, living in an international city like Madrid. It just became a huge passion of mine. And I just learned that you can work in international education. I'd never previously thought about that. And that's what I ended up getting my master's degree in and then my job at U of M. So yeah, I owe it all to Spain for that.
Yeah, same. I'm also interested in some capacity doing the work that Jake does. So we have a similar trajectory there. And then I'll turn it over to Jake to talk a little bit more about there are some differences within teaching in Spain, a few other options to do an assistant teacher. So
Yeah, so I just wanted to highlight two of the most popular options in pursuing like the teaching or an auxiliary position or teaching English in Spain position. So Hope and I have been talking about the Spanish government or the Spanish Ministry of Education option, where it's a free application. You can get placed all over Spain. It's very independent, so you're kind of on your own to to figure out everything like your visa, housing once you get there. Um, just there's not a whole lot of support, so it's kind of like a you get what you pay for type experience, which is in this case nothing. You do get insurance, which of course is very important to have insurance coverage. Um, and Yeah, so this is the Spanish government option. Um, and so that application deadline is April 4th, and yeah, it no longer opens February 9th, unfortunately. So hopefully we'll find out about that soon. But that's the super independent option that both Hope and I pursued. My biggest motivator was because it was free. But if you're interested in getting more support, maybe you haven't been abroad before, or just a little bit nervous and anxious about um, starting like going on a year-long trip abroad, there's a education abroad provider called CIEE. They do study abroad programming, but they also do post-grad teaching and English programming. So they do teaching in like China, South Korea, Chile, um, or at least used to. And then Spain would be probably their most popular program. As you can see, it's $2,350. Not cheap, but it's kind of like the other side of you get what you pay for. They provide a lot of support. They have like a robust pre-departure orientation and on-site orientation that includes 4 nights of hotel, like 4 nights of hotel covered in the program fee. They do really help you get a visa, which can be a very stressful process. They can help you find housing. They have like an on-site 24/7 contact. They have like a physical location in Madrid, and their placements are only in Madrid, so that's a huge difference as well. Um, so definitely an option to consider, but it is quite a bit of money. So I would just think about whether or not that's something that you think would be worth spending. When I put down application English, I didn't put like $3 signs like it's super, super expensive. I just don't know what the exact cost of the application fee is. It's probably like $50 or something like that, but still kind of annoying. And their application was open on like December 1st or something, and theirs is earlier than the Spanish government one. So their deadline is on March 1st. I have a feeling they could be pretty flexible with the deadline if you decide after the fact that the Spanish government process is too frustrating for you and you'd be willing to go through CIE. But yeah, it's totally up to you. Both of the programs are linked in the name above, so feel free to click on them when we send you the slides and learn more and decide. And Hope and I would be happy to talk to you more about the pros and cons of each one also.
Yeah, I think one thing thinking about just as a highlight, like this, the fact that Profex is not open right now is a really great example of why someone, if this is the right choice for them, if they have the funds, if maybe they're not confident in their Spanish or they'd like a little bit more support, like CIEE can be a great option because this can be a stressful process sometimes with the government. It is a lot of like just like accepting that like it might not get done on, you know, like the time that they say it is, or like you might just have to do some like be a little bit resourceful of like, okay, like here's like, I don't know, like, is this happening to anyone else? This is one like we'll get to it later, resource pages of like Facebook. If you don't have it, I know some people, my younger sister didn't have one. You need it. People use Facebook, and these Facebook pages are super helpful for like resources and like connecting with people. Also, I will say one thing with CIE, I'm not sure how much they still help with housing in Madrid specifically. I think they kind of like changed that. There are like third-party services that can help with that. But just keeping it in mind, it can be a great starting point depending on your level of comfort with the language and like figuring stuff out on your own. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about where we can go. So obviously before we mentioned the different cities, Madrid is one of the most popular options again, because it's more likely that you're going to be in a big city. So the thing that's really great about it is that it's the capital city of Spain. It's international, but there's still opportunities for immersion, right? So that could look like doing language exchanges with people from other countries. It could look like, I don't know, going to Retiro. This is their big park there that they're famous for. And going to do the boats, or sitting in, this is Plaza de Sol, or going to Templo de Boat. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do. Another thing that's great is that travel is more accessible and affordable. So if something that's really important to you with your time abroad is traveling internationally, or also just traveling to other regions of Spain, it's going to be a lot cheaper and easier to do so. That being said, you're also going to be paying more for rent living in Madrid than you may be living in another area. So there's kind of the pros and cons there that you want to think about. The other thing is that you can still be placed in rural parts of Madrid. Most people that I knew had a commute of about 45 minutes on public transport. But my best friend that I lived with had an hour and a half commute to like a small town in like one of the corners of Madrid. And so she was kind of stuck there the whole day. Again, that's just luck of the draw. You're never going to know if you feel like a big city is for you. This is still your best bet, but just acknowledging that there is the potential to be placed in those small corners of Madrid that are just a little further away. Also it's a fun city to live in, like access to parks, museums, restaurants, bars, nightlife. Like I loved it. And I think Jake, you did too. So then we have other regions. So like we were saying, it's a great chance for immersive experiences. Travel, like we mentioned, can be more expensive or time consuming. Each region of Spain has its own culture. One thing that's important to acknowledge is that if speaking Spanish and practicing the Spanish language is important to you, you want to be intentional with your placements. So in the north of Spain, there's going to be a lot of like dialects are not dialects, they're their own languages. So like, let's say in País Vasco, which if I go back, I think it might be more helpful to look at this map here. It's going to be this region up here in the north, right up here. They speak Basque. So they're going to speak a language that's completely different. And they don't really speak a lot of Spanish. There was kind of some stuff, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Spanish history, but they had a dictator, and during the dictatorship that ended in like the 60s, 70s, they like speaking these other native languages that they had was not really encouraged or allowed. So there's kind of a culture now of like, depending on the region, they might not really want to speak Spanish with you. Galicia also has their own language as well. So does Catalonia. Also Valencia does as well. So that's why the South is also an attractive option for people, because there's not a second language that's spoken. It's seen as like the most, when people think of Spain, they think of the South. So it's the most traditional in some ways. Yeah. So we're going to talk about our experiences now. Was mine first? Okay. So basically it's really nice because I worked at a high school and Jake had a different experience than I did. I worked at a bilingual high school in a community outside of Madrid. Like I said, 45 minutes. My school was great. They were really flexible with my hours. My teachers didn't give me a lot of work. Another thing to consider is that for some people, working in a primary school is advantageous because there's not an expectation of like classroom prep. Depending on the school you're at, sometimes, especially in high schools, you may be asked to make presentations. You may be asked to lead the class. It really is just going to depend on your school. There's no way to know. I also put that I wanted to be in a primary school, and I got placed in a high school, and I was really grateful for that. Something with working with high schoolers is that you're going to have better conversations, because when you're little and you're learning a new language, it might be a lot of, how are you? I am lucky today. Like things where it's like, if you have a passion for kids, like it's cute. But I think also sometimes like being able to have longer conversations, I valued that as well. I also gave private English lessons to supplement my income outside of school. And I also was integrated myself into the culture through playing soccer and volunteering as an English teacher with a local community organization that I am still, in fact, involved with today. So those things, you can kind of like take those pieces of your life, and I don't know, it really makes the experience more meaningful. I think it's thinking about like, do you want to live on the surface of these experiences if you're traveling every weekend or you're traveling a lot? Obviously, a year is a lot longer than 4 months, but like there's something to be said about building a life in the city you're living in versus traveling all the time. So I don't really know if I need to address any of the pictures, but those are some of my experiences. I traveled to like so many regions in Spain my first year because we couldn't travel outside with COVID. And then my second year, I traveled a lot internationally, and I really am really so grateful for those experiences. Like they really changed my life. So anyway, passing it on to you, Jake, to talk about your experience.
So yeah, I had many similar experiences to Hope, but just to focus a little bit on my school experience. As Hope mentioned, I was at a primary or elementary school for 2 years in southeastern Madrid. So it was still technically within Madrid city limits, but it was a little bit more on the outskirts. My commute was maybe like 30 minutes, so really not bad at all. And I taught first through sixth grade, so I would kind of rotate every 45 minutes to an hour to a different classroom to a different grade. And basically I was at a bilingual school, and the bilingual subjects at my school were social science, natural science, art, and physical education, which was super fun. And then English, of course. So yeah, just helped out at various levels. And my as Hope mentioned, when you teach at an elementary school, they're children and they're not at a level where they can have, as many conversations, like back and forth conversations in English. So a lot of my teaching, I guess you could say, was like vocabulary based, numbers, animals, days of the week, weather, things like that. So it was very, very basic, didn't require any prep, um, which was definitely nice. I mean, I was only working 16 hours a week anyways, but at the time, like I was really happy. And now that I work, full time, I'm like, it's really not that big of a deal either way. But yeah, it allowed me to have a lot of free time to explore other things, such as giving private lessons after school to supplement my monthly salary. I also joined a basketball league. I did pick up soccer also, but I was nowhere near as good um, as soccer as basketball, and I would not have been able to keep up with the Spaniards there. So I just played for fun. Um, as you can see in my pictures, I traveled around to different areas. This was before COVID, so it was a little while back. So I did quite a bit of international traveling, fortunately. And there were, um, it will vary by school, but one of going back to the difference between the government and CIE programs, a benefit of CIE is you are instantly connected to a network of so many others who are teaching with you. And when you go through the government program, you can sometimes feel alone trying to like figure out who your people are in Spain or once you get there. But one benefit, at least at my school, was there were three other auxiliaries at my school and two were from the US. One was from Ireland. So it was cool to kind of get built-in friends that way as well. So just know that that could be a possibility in your factoring into your decision. And when you're there for 2 years and you have a lot of free time, it allows you to, hang out with the other auxiliares, the other native Spanish teachers at your school, especially the bilingual ones. And yeah, fortunately, it's an opportunity to make long-term or like lifetime friends. And I'm still in touch with some of the people that I met there, which is really, really awesome. So yeah, I miss it all the time, but at least there are ways to have like bring Spain back with me in the US when I made the decision to move back.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jake, about how the other people at your school, it can be a great way to meet people and like joining other leagues and stuff. And we can also like if anyone has specific questions on that after, I think both of us can touch on that as well, like tips and tricks to kind of like help integrate yourself. Because that is a really important part for sure. Okay, so we are talking about resources of like where you can go to kind of look a little bit more about the experiences. So we have a few blogs here, the subreddit, the Auxiliares de Conversación Facebook pages, super helpful. Literally Bible. Like if you guys don't have Facebook, like you need to get it. You need to get on these pages because they're going to have all of your questions answered about specifics with visa stuff. They're going to have all your questions answered about Profex. They're going to have all your housing questions answered. A lot of people are going to be asking the same questions as you. And it's literally, yeah, it's just called Auxiliares de Conversación. And then they have one in Madrid. There's one called The Original. There's also one for like ladies in Madrid. Like there are different ones for regional areas. And like if you go on those Facebook pages, like you'll kind of explore it a little bit more. And yeah, saved my life many a time. And once you get to know people as well, like you can use those resources, but it's helpful to have this. Okay, so let's go, I guess now, any questions? I think that's all Jake and I have. Thank you guys so much for listening. I know we talked
Yeah.
a lot. There was a lot to cover. Should we stop screen sharing or leave it on for a bit or?
Hey, you go to the next screen. I think I accidentally made two questions. So like, yeah, here's our contact info so we can leave it up for a sec.
Oh, well, yeah.
We'll stop recording now.